Hey Fred, this is David from New Brunswick, Canada, and my favorite course is Mactaquac Provincial Park, and this is episode 951.
I feel like I taught so much like him and didn't know he existed, but Tony talks about what matters. And what really matters, he boils it down to, is how do you strike this ball well? Everything is built around hitting the ball first and having a good strike point. His whole process of building up, of being more over the ball, a little more centered over it, instead of feeling this big shift off of it and then big shift back. Let's separate the difference between mass and pressure movements. The pros are moving more pressure, not a lot of mass. And the amateurs move a lot of mass and not much pressure. So they're moving their mass way over their right foot, then trying to get it back over left. They never get it back front. So most golfers are going to be way better off by figuring out, how do I rotate much more right over the ball? And I'm going to figure out how to hit in front of this ball and strike the ball much better. Everything Tony did was based on that.
Golf is hard, but it doesn't have to be if you know what you're looking to improve. With Erik Schjolberg.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Erik.
Fred, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be back and an honor once again.
Oh, dude, you were my go-to guy. It's like, I haven't talked to Erik in 4 months. It's time to get him back on the show. We've got to get him back because you always have some really great insights about teaching and about methods and about simple mistakes that people make that they don't realize they're doing. So I always learn so much when I have you on the show. So thank you.
Thank you. I feel like I get a lot of that with golf. I do teach a lot of people that are like in my year-long programs where I'm seeing weekly, but a lot of people are like, hey, Erik, what I got this going on, tomorrow. What am I going to do? And I've been doing this. And so I feel like I do that for a lot of golfers too. Well, you're a golfer too.
Give me an example. That's really interesting. Like what was the most recent one that you heard? Hey, Erik, I need help because.
Well, so I really feel like it's something usually around how they're striking the ball. It's not, and usually how they analyze it is typically wrong. So, Erik, I've been recently doing this, and I think my hips are doing this, or my shoulders doing this, and I get down to talking to them more about it, and you find out their strike points are really bad. They're hitting it behind it, or they're topping it or something. And we talk about really, like, a lot of times I'll just give them a good routine, a good pre-shot routine. So I've met with people first. So we talk about, hey, do you remember the drill we did? Do this drill before you hit, and then change your focus when you're hitting the ball to just hitting in front and pick that spot in front of the ball. And it's very rare if they don't call me back and let me know that they had a great round. And, it wasn't because probably maybe the advice was so great. It's just that they changed their mental thought to instead of like, oh, I'm going to go out tomorrow and focus on turning my hips more or doing this with my shoulder. They're going to change their whole thought process to, hey, I'm going to hit 4 inches in front of this ball with my irons. And they have a great round, but it was just their mindset had changed off hitting to more swinging.
I think we've learned many times from a lot of different people, from coaches to doctors to psychologists, that when you focus on your physical space, when you focus on what you're doing, you're not going to have success.
Oh, you're done. It's just our body does a really good job, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners have already heard of, organizing itself. And we just screw it up. Now, I do tell everybody on your practice swing, you can think about 52 things if you want and go through that process, because to me, I really believe this, our body gets a chance to move the way we want it to in our practice swing. It says, hey, I want to do this. Then when we get up to hit, hopefully it kind of repeats that body movement if we're giving it a good one to do. And then we can focus on that strike point. Or I usually say you think of one backswing movement if you have a little backswing or a takeaway thought. But after that takeaway thought or something, you better focus on something ahead of the ball.
Yeah. And I feel that way myself. I'm always wondering, I can go through all these different thought processes when I'm setting up and I'm taking my practice swings. But once I step up to the ball, and we've heard this so many times, is just focus on something external, whether it be the mark in front of the ball, of centering myself over the front edge of the ball, right?
Yeah.
But once I start thinking about my swing mechanics everything goes to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
And what I've had this thought in my head twice now, and it's disappeared both times, that I don't know.
Well, you've had Gabriel Wolf on. That's okay. Well, you've had Gabriel Wolf on, and with the external thoughts, and I can't remember who our partner is that wrote the book. But it's funny, since that there has been a paper that came out, and I think it was in the last year, that disputed that somewhat, and it's kind of funny because it's funny because I think I think there's so much validity to the external thoughts for people having them. But I think what people take away from it where it can go wrong is I can just be external. You have to have some form and function, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where some of that gets thrown off. If someone goes, oh, I can just think external about this and think external about that. Yes, you want to, but there still has to be, golf is such a game. There has to be there has to be some good sequencing at certain times in your golf swing, right? There has to be a good impact to hit it well. There just are some certain things that we have to, and maybe that can be part of our external focus, but there's quite a few things in golf that we have to do. And I think it has to be done right, but there's still some form and function that has to be done. Right. And how do we get that in and then add in the external thoughts? And how it was worded, I think was a little weird in the study, but I just feel like, I still think there's huge, I think a lot of coaches like going, oh, here, this proves it. Now, external is not the whole answer. It's like, no, it's like life, really. It's usually about balance. There's something in there that it's not all one way. It's usually some of both, but everybody knows that thinking about too much in your swing has never helped anybody.
No, it doesn't help. And I remember what I was going to say, and I wrote it down. So like when you play with people and they're like tweaking and making adjustments all through the round. Oh, I can't hit this today. Oh, I'm going to start doing this now. I'm going to start doing this now. No, it's like, I just remind myself, just because you had made bad contact this time, not even saying a bad shot, because once the ball leaves the club face, you have no control whatsoever. So all you really can control is what you can do. And so often if I have bad contact, instead of trying to like what I do, I just try to remind myself, you've hit this club properly before. You've had success with this before.
Yeah.
Just let it go and it'll happen again.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen every single time. It doesn't. You watch it on TV. It doesn't for them either.
No.
But that's golf. That's why we get sucked in.
We do get sucked in. I do think we need to have a priority on striking the ball well. And I think pretty much anybody can do that. And when I mean striking the ball well, is hitting in front of it with anything that's on the ground, not a driver. But I think anybody can get to that point. Now you have the balls going right and left a little bit. It may have too much curvature because of path and that. But I think it should be everybody's goal to strike the ball first. And that's my goal if anybody comes and sees me. I think anybody should walk around the course hitting it fat, hitting it thin, topping it. That's all low point issues. And I think that's just, if you have low point issues, you shouldn't be working on something with your shoulders or your hips or thinking about that. You should be thinking about, what do I have to do to get in front of the ball? Now, could the shoulders and hips be part of it with what you're doing? Sure. But your first thing should be to find a really good coach who understands how to get you hitting the ball better that day and doesn't tell you something like, hey, you got to get worse to get better. No, you should get better right away when you go see somebody. And that should be learning to hit that ball better, like better strikes. So,
yeah, I have a friend and people that I know, it's like they'll take a lesson and they won't necessarily work on it. Right? They'll take the lesson. It's like, oh, great. How was your lesson? Oh, my lesson was really good. So what are you doing to work on that? Yeah, I went out and played golf. When? About a couple weeks later. So wait, you didn't practice anything that you learned for those couple weeks, and then you thought it was just going to come back when you walked into the golf course and to play around? Like, it's like, no, it doesn't work that way, man.
It usually doesn't work that way, does it?
You got to practice it. And I know it's hard to practice. I know life gets in the way of practice. So don't take lessons. And stay away from YouTube.
Well, there's a bigger one. I think YouTube's the bigger problem.
Well, I think you said earlier how they analyze themselves. And it's like, I wanted to ask you, I wrote it down.
You nailed it.
How do they analyze it? Well, because they saw a video on YouTube, right?
Yeah, well, the fundamental problem is you're analyzing. If I were to analyze my swing, and if I didn't have it on video, and I don't know, I'm going off some feel I have and say, okay, I'm going to change my swing based on this. Like, how do I know? And then the other thing, you're taking a lot of amateurs who don't understand the golf swing well, and they're saying, oh, I'm doing this with my shoulder or hips or legs or whatever. And it's like, well, first off, you don't even see that you're really doing that. You're going off some feel that you're feeling, or somebody told you that you're playing with. I gave a lesson to a guy recently. His buddy told him that the club was going like this all over the place when he was getting ready to hit it. Within the last foot, the guy was moving the club face up and like it was moving all over the place right before he was getting to hit it. And he needs to stop that. I was like, going, well, that guy's got some really good eyes. And it would be impossible for the club to have any kind of movement like that before it hit the ball. But he was hitting some on the toe, some on the heel. And it's because he didn't have the club coming through straight. He was moving his hands all up and down right before impact. And it's making the club go up and down like this way. So he couldn't hit it square. And that's what he thought he was doing wrong. So it's a lot of perception. And the problem is you go to YouTube and you're trying to fix a problem that you may not even have. Or you're going about something that's built for somebody else. And like me and you shouldn't fix problems the same way. We're different age. We move different. We're different as far as athletically. You know, my shoulder hurts. Your neck may hurt. Your elbow. So we move different. So there's not this one swing for anybody. There's a lot of good coaches on YouTube. I do some stuff on YouTube, but you have to know what you're going there for. And I tell people the best stuff on YouTube is if you go to a coach and let's say he says you're working on takeaway, whatever, right? Maybe even that first part, just a P2, just a club parallel. Well, let's say he gave you 3 or 4 drills and you're like, man, I just can't figure it out from this. Well, then go look up maybe some more drills for the takeaway just from that part. And maybe that will go, oh, okay. Because I mean, there's so many drills out there, you know, like there's hundreds for stuff like that. So maybe somebody else clicks with you more than what that guy said, but at least you know it's something exactly specific to what you know you have a problem with, right? And a lot of times, just getting on that really quick, we're talking about striking is I hear a lot of times, well, why are you hitting it bad? And I ask them, they go, oh, my takeaway is killing me. I go, that's why you're not hit. So it's really interesting. So with stuff I hear, I love it.
It all starts PGA, right? Position, grip, and alignment. How often is it that maybe they're not aligned properly, or they're not holding the club properly, or even if their shoulders are offline, right? Maybe their hips are parallel, and I don't know, like and they do it at address of the ball. They try to line themselves up while they're addressing the ball as opposed to standing behind the ball and looking down the fairway. This one I really, really don't understand. Yeah. It's like you got to line that up from behind the ball and see where you're going, because when you're twisting your head and looking over to the side, you're out of alignment already.
Huge. I would say 80, close to, this is a huge number, but I really believe about 80% of faults, I think, well, they start for sure from address, but you can fix most people from address can be fixed for whatever their issues, especially when you get to the better player. And I'm talking better from maybe 15 under. I mean, a new golfer, obviously they don't have any swing motion, but most golfers, it's what they do at impact or at address that causes most of their issues and how wrong they're set. I mean, it could be their grip is just brutal, in which most people's are. You know, they don't have it in, you know, they don't have, I call the meaty part on top of their hand is not on top of the grip. They have it more just running up the palm. So, and a very weak grip, right? And they wonder why they can't close the club face. That's one issue. But also, like you said, alignment is horrible. The way they're standing in ball position may be horrible, too far away from it, their posture, maybe C posture, S posture. There's so many things that go wrong. And even how we set up our forearms and our arms to it, like when we set up to the ball. Like if I have my arm rotated externally, internally, I can set it the right way if I have a problem rotating the club face. So if I'm not supinating enough, and I call it if you think of supinating with your left arm as a cup of soup, if you rotate it over, a cup of soup is sitting in it, that means I supinated it. If you're not doing that, then you're most likely have a little trouble rotating the club face through an impact, right? We have to have a little bit of supination in our forearm to hit it. And depending on how we set up, if we set up with it already turned over like this way, then how am I going to turn it over anymore? I can't.
You're showing it to me, but you and I are the only one who can see each other.
That's good. Okay, if I set it in more internally,
words, Erik.
If I just rotate it in more internally and rotate my wrist over when I'm taking the grip, then I have a lot of room to rotate my arm over to supinate. So a lot of stuff can be fixed right at address. And it's hugely important, but not many people want to work on that part. That's not a sexy part. But in my lessons, we do work on it because you're just making up for problems that are right there in the rest of the swing. So you might as well take care of it at the very beginning.
And I want to talk more about low point issues because, a lot of people who are new to the game or just can't even break 90 or struggling with that. And I totally understand that and the frustration that goes with that. But when you quiz them on where should be, if you consider the golf swing a circle, there's going to be a low point. Where is the low point in relationship to the ball? And a lot of time they'll tell you at the ball or behind the ball. Yeah. And it's like wrong.
Yeah. You got to get in front. That low point has to be in front. I heard, I don't get to watch golf much. I heard this on the broadcast the other day. The guy chipped the ball and he said, that was great. He really got under the ball nicely on that one. I was like, oh my gosh, you're killing golfers out there. Like we're not trying to slide the club underneath. Like if we come down with a descending angle of attack, even in chipping, which we should, we're not sliding the club underneath. We can't. But by the nature of it, you're getting in front. So low point, like you said, Fred, you described it well. We all have a low point to our swing in the circle. Most people's are behind them. Anybody behind the golf ball. People who top the ball, it's most likely the reason you're doing it over 90% is because your low point is behind, which means your angle of attack will start coming up right after low point. And then you're going to top it because your club's coming upwards at that point. It's not that you aren't it's not that you peaked or lifted your head up.
Right. And I was going to say, it's been like, and you'll hear him scream, oh, I lifted my head.
Yeah, I peaked.
No, you didn't. You lifted your back, not your head. And you have to lift your head.
Yeah, eventually, yeah. I mean, I don't show it to spite people, but I love it when they say that in lessons, so I can show them on video, and that way and I always tell them, I go, I joke with them and they laugh, but I said, you'll be my first person in 30 years that I've seen do it. You go, come on, watch. I want to see this together so we can watch this famous moment together of you picking your head up because I haven't seen it yet. And they watch it. I go, oh, whoa, that's what my husband tells me. He yells this at me the whole time. That's what every partner tells me, every friend. They all tell me to keep my head down. My dad told me that for years, they say. And I'm like going, well, they did their best from what they knew. And it's one of those things that somehow got really big in golf, and it just it's spread like wildfire, and we haven't killed it yet, Fred, because it's still out there a lot.
And while we're at it, if you play golf with a spouse, don't give lessons on the course. No, I see it so much. I teach women, and my wife and I run a golf league for women together, and. Really? Yeah, and the biggest complaint of all the women is the men. Men don't leave them alone. Like they're at the range trying to hit balls, and some guy walks up to them. Everything, right? They're mansplaining
everything to them, and it really bothers them. It's one of the reasons they don't play, and it's just they're always getting advice from other men. Husbands do it to them to the point where the wives don't want to go play with their husbands anymore. And here's the thing:
kids,
at the core,
dads and their kids.
Oh, huge! I think at the core of it is men are trying to be helpful, right?
Sure.
So it's not coming from a bad place. I understand that. But I saw this poor girl the other day. My wife and I were driving. She came to the course to see me and help me grab some stuff leaving. And we were driving the cart out of there, and we saw somebody teeing off. It was a guy sitting in his cart and his wife or girlfriend teeing off. And he said, honey, watch that ball. I promise I'll watch it for you. Don't take your head off the ball. Okay. So she's teeing off. She has an iron or something, and she hits it, tops it. And he goes, yeah, you picked up. And we watched Fred. Like this poor girl looked like she couldn't even move her body. She was so stuck over that ball staring at it. And she still did it because she's not moving. How are you going to get to your low point if you're not moving forward at all? We got to move a lot forward. So you telling somebody who tops to keep your head down is making it worse. But I would say if you did a survey of your listeners, Fred, very high percent of them, if not all of them, already know that or are well aware of that, and they're help spreading the news. You have a lot of listeners that are very keen on a lot of this stuff because they hear it weekly. Yeah. Through a lot of good guests. So.
Yeah. I mean, with Josh Zander recently, we were talking about bunker play and he talked about how people think that you have to hit behind the ball. he said, no, you don't hit behind the ball. Your low point should still be in front of the ball. You just enter the sand behind the ball.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
Oh, wow, that's a revelation, because we always hear the wrong advice on that.
Always. It makes it hard. It makes it really hard to do well when you're get bad advice. Real bad.
What is golf but not a lot of bad advice?
I feel I grew up playing, and this is, I'm old enough to where we had any science or knew anything. And I was always told that the chipping is just a short version of the full swing. And I was always a terrible chipper because I was always catching the ground first. I was catching it heavy. And if I was in rough, I'd catch it really heavy. And I wasn't intuitive enough to know, hey, bring it out a little more outside and maybe like come a little bit outside in on it to get the low point up front. I wasn't intuitive enough to know that. And so my chipping was awful growing up because nobody told me that. And once I was told it, how you're actually supposed to do it, I excelled at it. And, it's just getting the word out of a lot of these things. Golf, I think golf is a hard sport. I think it's a very hard sport. But there's things that golfers do to make it much, much harder on themselves. And a lot of it's misperception. Most people don't take lessons. I think the number's around 3% that they say that take lessons. And I get it too, because if you go to a coach and they tell you that you're going to get worse before you get better, I wouldn't go either. I wouldn't go get lessons either. To me, that makes no sense. Like, what if you went to go take piano lessons and the piano teacher goes, you know what, Fred, you're going to get worse before you get better. Or you go take cooking lessons and the cook goes, well, Fred, you got to get much worse before you get better at this. You'd go, what? But in golf, coaches get away with saying it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, and it should never happen. You should get better immediately. Now, the thing is, like, there's a big charge of how do you do it, and I think that's the big differentiator. How do you get better immediately, and how do you not get worse while improving? And that is the key. And there has to be a big separation between practice and play, and a big understanding of how do we perform on the golf course. And I always tell people it's this: you have to look at practice and play as two different things. And then you have to look as when you're playing golf as big as an art as it is of striking the ball well. And I know they come together, but when you're working on your game, you shouldn't get worse. You should still get better. And maybe you are working on your irons that, let's say it makes it a little struggle because of something, but it still shouldn't if you're thinking properly. If you're not letting that stuff get into your thoughts while you're playing, you should still be getting better. But if something's going on, well, then your chipping should get better if you're focused on that. Like, don't give into it. Like, get better all the time. And it can be done. If you're not, it's always a mental issue. And that's what I found out from my golfers that are in my year-long program, that it's like 6 months we focus on swing, 6 months on playing. And anybody that's struggling playing, it's always boils down to, what they're thinking about this move or this move. And I'm like, well, are you thinking about that anymore? They're like, oh no, I completely forgot about that part. It's like, well, you're not focused on the swing. You're just hitting it now. So there's always something there mentally. And that's what's so good about golf. It's so beautiful. I think about it is the mental part of just checking yourself, learning about it, and how we can grow every day from it, and be like, man, I knew that and I just did it. And I gotta get better at that. We all can get better.
I frequently will remind myself and anybody who will listen to me that, playing golf and hitting golf balls are really two different things.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you go into the range, you're hitting golf balls, you'll be hitting 100, you did 2 buckets, 3 buckets, spend hours doing this. That's not going to improve playing golf. There's so much more, and like the whole concept of, I just want to be consistent. Well, you never have the same shot twice. How in the heck are you going to be consistent if you never have the same shot 2 times in a row? And if you go and play the same course 4 times a week, you're never going to have, except off the tee box maybe, you're never going to have the same shot.
No, I think so.
Consistency is.
Yeah, well, it's what is consistency? I think
what is consistency?
I think the problem is there's drive. I think it's really the definition of consistency is wrong by most in golf of what it is, and it depends on who they are for what it means. But I think most golfers, unless they're an elite golfer, consistency means to hit the ball better. I really think that's all it means for them. Now, when you come higher level, consistency is what it truly is. I think it's, we have dispersion, how far right or left or short or long you are basically on your shots. If you look at it, let's just say you take an iron shot to par 3, an amateur is not good. It's going to have some short, some long, some left, some right. The better you get, you don't have short and long anymore. You get really, because you're striking the ball well, but you're going to have right and left always, right? Our face angle, we're never going to be perfect on the face angle. It's moving too fast, especially the longer we hit it, it's harder to control. So you're always going to have dispersion, but you want to learn to get your dispersion left and right, not short and long. And then after that, you're trying to just make it closer. If you're 15 feet left and right on a 120-yard shot, well, then you're trying to get it to 13 feet left and right, 26 feet. That's total 26. It's a lot.
And that's also a testimonial and an argument for getting fitted for clubs. If your dispersion is way off, maybe it's also the clubs. But then people are like, no, I want to get better before I get fitted.
Oh yeah,
it's putting the cart before the horse before the cart. The cart before the horse.
Before the horse.
Yeah, it's definitely. Yeah, it'll help you getting fitted. Yeah. I've been playing ping irons for over a decade.
Yeah,
and I just got fitted a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And I tested a lot of the ping clubs.
Yeah.
And found one that worked okay. And I said, no, let's keep going. Let's keep trying this. And ended up with these TaylorMade QI irons.
Yeah.
And so I went to pick up the irons. It took a couple weeks to get them back. And they're putting, my buddy Nick is the club fitter at this local retailer.
Yeah.
And that's why I like to go to retailer as opposed to going to a guy who's a fitter for a brand. It's like, I want to try a lot of different brands, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I go, and he's putting the grips on. I said, can I go hit a couple? He goes, yeah, get here. So I take the 5-iron and I'm hitting, and I'm like, this is not 100%. I had one good shot, it's my low point, and I'm definitely, I've always struggled with the 5-iron as it is. And then I hit the 7-iron a couple. And then I said, now that I've hit the 5-iron and the 7-iron, I'm really curious on the distance difference. Does the 6-iron fit right in between that? So I pull out the 6-iron and I hit, 1, 2, 3. On the 4th swing, the head flew off the glove.
Oh, yeah, really?
And we looked at each other. Like, oh my. And it's like.
Is that the first time you had that happen?
I've never had that happen before.
It's a weird feeling, isn't it?
It's so strange.
It is very strange.
Then I went up and I went home and I looked up these irons online because I wanted to see what the difference in each of the lofts was for each club. What the difference.
4,
is it 4 degree, 5 degree, what? Yeah. And where does it work down to the wedges, and do my wedges fit in that?
Yeah.
And the second review on the TaylorMade website is a guy going, I've always loved TaylorMade. They're the greatest clubs. I got these and they're great. Except the first time I played, I hit my 5-iron and the head flew down the fairway.
Way.
I'm like, oh my gosh, this is something that happens regularly.
Crazy.
Oh,
like
no.
Cutting back on glue there or something.
Yeah, I don't know. No, it's like snapped, right?
It snapped.
Not the shaft, the little plastic piece between the shaft and the head.
So it could be an issue with the actual head.
Yeah.
So what did you do? Did you stay with him though, or did you say?
Yeah, no. They gave me another one, and they said, go play with these for a couple weeks because they have this nice 90-day return policy, but for store credit. And so I okay, let me go play these. And they pulled another 6-iron from a different set of the same club. And then I played the other day, and it's like, how come I can't hit? Oh, it's not the club that I ordered. I mean, I'm supposed to be 2 degrees upright. And so it's like I couldn't hit the 6-iron. So just don't touch it. Don't touch it. But I'm excited about these irons. I'm really, it's interesting because after taking almost 6 months off, to heal, I come back to play and I've got a new set of irons. I've got a new driver. I've got my new putter. I've swapped out one of my wedges and I'm like, okay, so I'm starting from ground zero here and I'm really excited to do this. So I don't have any preconceived notions of what I'm doing.
Yeah,
if
that's
it's
good.
Right or not. But I want to go back to when you talked about getting better. And I want to define that. When you talk about, you should get better. You take a lesson, you should get better. You should be always getting. That's not by looking at the scorecard, though.
No,
Because your scores
I
are
think,
not going to go down every single round.
no, I think
So
it's
how
hard.
do you
It's
define getting better?
by you're striking the ball gets better. You should strike the
Okay.
ball better. Yeah. And depending what your issue is when you go see somebody, but striking the ball should be better. If you fade it, or slice it, you should be slicing it less.
Mm-hmm.
Everything it comes in. I always say this, and I've heard this quite a bit, but just recently a guy told me, I think I saw him on Saturday, and he said, Eric, he goes, I always tell people, you work on this and it leaks into your swing is what I say. Okay. So you practice this, meaning let's just say you slice it. Okay. You're not going to start being a drawer of the ball, hitting these perfect draws the next time you go play. What's going to happen is you're going to have it leak into your system where you're going to get a little bit more of each time. Now, so if you're a big fader of the ball, you probably have to learn to move it more right to left, kind of like almost a hook. So you're kind of learning just to do a little bit of that, but leaking into your game, meaning all these little parts leak in. So if I am horrendous at hitting behind the ball always, well, I'm going to move more and more forward each time. Okay. So maybe I hit behind it 25 times in a round. Next, by working on it, then I only hit behind it 15. Mm-hmm. Or if my low point's 4 inches behind, it moves to 2 inches to 1 inch, and then it starts getting forward, whatever it is, So that is leaking in your game. By practicing these things, you get better at all these. Usually there are instant fixes where you go, oh, boom, and here we do this. It instantly fixes this issue, right? I mean, that happens all the time. But most big changes, when you're really changing a golfer, that's where I say it leaks into your game. You'll start seeing these effects by practicing it little by little. So this guy was talking to me, he said, Eric, I thought you were nuts when you told me that. He goes, I had no idea what you're talking about. But he goes, 6 months after we were together, he goes, I was playing golf, and I go, oh, I get it. And then he started looking back at his other rounds and, the prior 4, 5, 6 months. He's like, oh, now I can see what he was talking about, how I started doing this a little bit more each time. He goes, well, now I have it completely. And he had a major, major swing change he had to make. So it's just those, like when you're making big swing changes, that's what I mean, leaking into your game. Those things. Now strike point, I feel like when you're striking in front of the ball, we're hoping you get in front of it immediately, right? But there's a lot of things that go into it, and I just think scoring is another thing that's hard. It's like I was talking to Julie about this the other day, my wife, that it takes a long time for people to understand that you have to, someone told me the other day they shot they were 1 under after 12 holes, right? And then shooting 82, and I talked to him.
1 under after 12 holes and then went 10 over on the next 6?
And I got into why, and I started finding out why. They were thinking about scores.
Right.
Yeah. And that takes
I'm 1 under. This could be the best round of my life. Yeah. Oh, you're doomed. You're doomed.
The friend started saying something. The guy riding in the car was like, hey, you only got a double buggy. You're still only 1 over. Okay. You can still do well. It all became about what you're doing here with the score, shooting your best round of your life is what it became about. And he told me at first it was, oh, I did this. This is what happened. And when I started talking to him, it was so score related.
Right.
And his whole mindset had changed.
Outcome. Right?
Outcome based.
You lost the idea of process and went to outcome. And when you do that, you're going to lose.
Yeah. And that takes, I always say, thankfully I'm a golfer too, and I played it at a high level when I was younger. That process takes a whole long time to get through, to learn.
And understand.
You don't learn that and understand it. Yeah. I can tell you today, don't do that. This is what we want to think about. But you have to experience it one time of having your lowest round at 1 under at 12 holes and fail. And go, oh, that's what Eric said, or that's what somebody else said, and go, okay, I'm going to work on this. And that's why you need to be working with a good coach, because they're going to help you get through those things and understanding. Most people think, and like I say in my year-long program I do, they're hitting the ball really well after 6 months. And a lot of them will say, Eric, I think we don't need to do the next 6 months. I'm okay. And I'll say, okay. And they'll go play a couple rounds and come back to me and like, oh, well.
I'm sorry, Eric.
Yeah.
Please take me back.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to break up with you.
Right, yeah. They find out the battle is much different out there. And it's mental, but it's also, it's mental and it's also physical. It's hitting the ball in different lies. It's a different ball game. But if you can strike the ball well off a flat lie, you can learn to make adjustments elsewhere. So a lot of people say, oh, it doesn't transfer at all from the range to that. It's like there are things that transfer. It depends how you do it.
I've been playing golf now for like 25 years ish, right? Doing the podcast in the 19th year of doing this. So I've learned a tremendous amount, and probably more than most average golfers learn, when they're just out there playing for 20 years or something. And I'm still getting to places that the nuance of golf, I'm starting to go, oh, now I understand what that means. I mean, I've heard it so many times, I've repeated it many times, but it has to click in you in a way that it's like, now it's starting to make sense. And that's not always easy to do.
No, it's the right mindset. And then, like you said, playing the game a lot, wanting to learn it, wanting to understand it. I always say golf is like life. We have to go through those downs to get to the ups. We don't, and golf is the same thing. We don't learn anything from great rounds. We learn a lot. Well, we can learn a lot from poor rounds. A lot of people don't, because they just throw it away as, oh, just a bad day or whatever. So like, well, let's learn from it. I always say I'm a doctor. I don't care about your bad shots or good shots when you come see me. I want to know about your bad ones. Let's fix those. Right. So, but like you said, the nuances, they're so huge. And it's like, if you don't play often, you forget about maybe, okay, if I have the ball above my feet, I'm probably going to maybe hit this a little bit left, or you don't know how much further to start that to the right if you're a right-hander. It's just those little things you forget about or don't think about. Oh man, that ball moves quite a bit more on me when it's above my feet. Or it's like all those little nuances are great. And I think that's the fun thing about golf is that weekly or how off you play, but remembering those and doing them it's a great learning experience. I love it.
A line that I've probably repeated multiple times, and I keep it right here on my desk about golf is like life. Golf is an endless series of tragedies obscured by an occasional miracle.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Right.
It's beautiful.
That's life, man. That's life.
It's exactly life, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's exactly life. It's life isn't easy.
And if you make plans, it's not going to work out.
Right. And
if you're looking at your scorecard, right. If you're looking at your scorecard and you're thinking about what you need to do to finish, it's not going to work out.
I think the other big one, Fred, is driving range before you play. So I hear this all the time. Like people go out and play and they have their worst rounds when they have good range sessions. What happens?
Oh, all the time.
Expectations, right?
Yeah. And to me, it's like when I'm having a bad round on a bad warm-up session, not practice, but a warm-up session before a round. It's not going like, oh, I'm going to do really well today, because you really got to bear down. Now you got to really focus. Now you got to stay, in it. Where if you're feeling like, oh, that was a great session for my warm-up, I'm nice and loose and easy. And it's like, I'm not focused at all.
You're not focused, and your expectations go through the roof. And then what happens when you throw that double bogey out there in the first? Then you're so upset because I was going to have this great round. I hit the ball great. What happened? I don't, what happened between now and then? You have to change you go to the range before you play to loosen up and warm up. And I like to see good striking. That's it. But you don't need full swings. But you aren't there to set the basis of how you're going to play that day, but how you hit the ball there.
No, it's how it's going to feel. Are you loose?
Just get loose.
You got to get loose, man. Because you don't want to get loose by the ninth hole. Because that's what's going to happen if you don't warm up. You're going to get loose by the ninth hole, and then you'll maybe start hitting it well. But you're probably beating yourself up so much by that point that you're just like you're painful.
Yeah.
So just last week, we concluded our annual Tony Manzoni. Replaying his episodes. And in the past, we've only done like 8 or 9 episodes. And this year we played every single one that Tony did with us. And if I remember correctly, that's how you and I met. You reached out to me because you heard Tony Manzoni on the podcast. And you were like, I love listening to other teachers, and I've never heard of this guy. And he's so good.
Yeah. I wanted his book and the video from you. Can people still get that from writing you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The book is available on Amazon, in a Kindle format or paperback. Okay. And the video that he created, which was a DVD at the time, we have that available to listeners. If they want, they can write to me and I'll let them know how they can get it. You can get it for free. You can buy it, whatever it is. But you can write to me directly and always give the the email address at the end. But
Okay.
I mean, he's been gone since 2018, and yet every year, like this year more than ever, because I've played so many more episodes that I've never replayed before. People are like, "Oh my God, this guy is so good. I wish I would have known about him." Nobody knew about him. Although I did meet a teacher last week that knew him, so I'm going to try to get him on the show.
That knew him. I wish I would have. Like when I heard him, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my guy. Like this, I feel like I taught so much like him and didn't know he existed. I love going around to meet other coaches. I'll go watch them, talk to them. That's why I'll be out in San Francisco to see you there next week, is meeting with a bunch of other coaches to, just learn from each other and go over some stuff. But Tony, I think people like listening to him because he talks about what matters. And what really matters, he boils it down to, is how do you strike this ball well? Like everything is built around hitting the ball first and having a good strike point. And it's not like that is secondary or third. His whole process of building up, of being more over the ball, a little more centered over it, like instead of feeling this big shift off of it and then big shift back, to where if you don't play a lot or if it's not your job, it's very hard. And first off, it's not a separate difference between mass and pressure movements. Like the pros are moving more pressure, not a lot of mass. And the amateurs move a lot of mass and not much pressure. So they're moving their mass way over their right foot, then trying to get it back over left. They never get it back front. So most golfers are going to be way better off by figuring out, how do I rotate much more right over the ball? And I'm going to figure out how to hit in front of this ball and strike the ball much better. And that's everything Tony did was based on that. And it's a lot of what I do in my coaching. It was that. And so hearing him, I was like, man, and plus to hear how well he did with his college students, and just an unbelievable record. And then you find out the personality and you hear about the people he hung out with Sinatra and some of his stories back in the day. And I'm like, man, love listening to his stories. I got to meet another guy who knows him well through you too, and that helped write the book. And
Paul Cervantes,
Paul. So he's told me some stories you have too of him. Neat guy, really neat guy. Great coach, though. Great coach, great communicator, a lovely person. We miss him so much, but I'm so glad that we're able to bring him back every year. That is incredible that you have this library of them to listen to. I encourage everybody to listen to it. I think for most golfers, it's a great way to play, which talks about just rotating more of the ball so we can get more in front of it. Single pivot swing with a little bit more balance, more weight on your left side. Yeah. And keeping the elbows in, keeping the arms attached to your body. Most golfers, they are stuck on their back foot when they start their downswing, and they're dead from there. You're just dead. So if you pivot more right over the ball, you're going to be loaded up to start your downswing right there. You're ready to go. It's a simpler swing. People are like, oh, it's going to lose power. Most people don't have power anyways. By striking the ball and getting a good strike point, you're going to get a lot more power and hit it a lot further. So it's a great technique. I've been doing it forever. I love it. And great coach. So I thank you for having it on. My pleasure. Absolutely. It's an honor. So you mentioned briefly that in the week or so, you and I are going to get together and play some golf. Yeah. You're coming to the San Francisco area. And again, I always encourage listeners, if you're in the San Francisco area visiting or you live here, reach out to me. I love to play golf with you. I would love to play. So you and I are going to, and I've seen you at, I was in Arizona and you were there, you were working. Hi, we waved. But I've never been on the golf course with you, and I'm a little bit intimidated, my friend. Oh, don't be. We'll have a lot of fun. No, it's not being intimidated. It'll be fun. We're going to have a good time. You know what? I'll bring a couple microphones. We'll wear them, and we'll just chat. And you'll be able to comment. I don't want you to give me a lesson while we're playing. We just talked about never do that. Don't mansplain that to me. No. But I would love to have your insights to playing golf with me and what you see, and just just get your take on. Yeah. And we're going to be playing a very, very special course. We're going to be playing at the Olympic Club in San Francisco. Lake course. I'm looking forward to it. I haven't played there. I love your area where you live in. I'm excited. It's going to be, when we're leaving here, it's going to be 100 and I think 10 it's getting up to. So the heat's finally hitting. What is it going to be there Friday or Saturday? Okay. So at my house, it could easily be 95 degrees. Okay. Right? I live 22 miles from San Francisco.
I drive south. I cross the Golden Gate Bridge. I go to the area where the Olympic Club is.
Yeah.
And I can almost assure you, it's going to be 62 degrees, overcast, moist, fog blowing through.
I can't wait.
I mean, it's just going to be, it is microclimates is this area. So don't be wearing shorts. Don't be in one short sleeve. Bring warm clothes. Bring options. That's how you have to live in San Francisco.
Layers. Is it
bring
layers?
Bring layers.
I can't wait. It'll be a 50-degree difference. It'll be beautiful. It'll be fun. It'll be great to see you. It'll be great to play with you. And looking forward to it.
And your wife, right?
Yeah, she'll be there too.
I can't wait to meet Julie. Dude, it's tell everyone how to find you online.
Oh, EJSgolf.com, EJSgolf.com. And I just started a thing on the school app, SKOOL, which you can find EJS Golf Academy. Go in there. I have a ton of cool free stuff there. I'm putting together a bunch of programs for how to stop slicing, shaft lean, bunch of really cool stuff in there to allow me to reach a lot more people around the world. So really excited about that. And
social media, you're EJS Golf?
And Instagram, EJS Golf Academy. You can find all of it on my webpage, the links to it at EJSgolf.com. Bottom of it will have all those links.
Dude, so much fun. Always a lesson. Always get to learn something new. And thanks, really excited to see you in a couple weeks.
Me too. Thanks, Fred.
Well, hopefully we'll feature Erik again soon, maybe even next week, because as he mentioned, he's in San Francisco this week, and he's invited me to join him and his wife tomorrow to play 18 at the historic, and I might add, intimidating, Championship Lake Course at the Olympic Club, host of 5 U.S. Opens. I'll bring my gear, and if it works out, we'll record a conversation during the round about the strategy of making it through a course that has 6 sets of tees, including 4 sets of combo tees, with the men's slope rating from a 121 from the green tees to a 143 from the championship tees. Hopefully I won't embarrass myself by playing the whites, which are still a 130 slope rating, and that is significantly higher than what I'm accustomed to. So please stay tuned and wish me luck. If you're in or coming to San Francisco this summer, just like Erik is doing, let me know so that we can set up a time to play together. Or why don't you and your partner join me and my non-golfing wife for an incredible adventure to Portugal this coming September 5th through the 13th. 2024. We'll be playing golf while there with 3 rounds scheduled. And if you'd prefer, you can play golf every day while we're on the coast at Villamoura. There's lots of flexibility in our schedule. Non-golfers will experience optional spa visits, sightseeing, and time to relax on the beach. And you'll have time to yourselves to make this probably one of the most memorable and romantic trips of your life. So clear your calendar and join me. To get all the information, pricing, and download a detailed PDF, please visit tmigolf.com/golfsmarter. You can write to me directly if you have any other questions, or just check the show notes and click on the link to tmigolf.com/golfsmarter. I want to thank this week's Golf Smarter ambassador, David from New Brunswick, Canada. David clearly wants more from Tony Manzoni Instruction, so he requested a free copy of the Lost Fundamental video. If you'd like to get Tony's video for free, then all you have to do is create an intro for an upcoming Golf Smarter episode. But we also have a couple of other gifts that I want you to try out too. There's a glove and glove storage compartment from redroostergolf.com, the online glove subscription service that has high-quality gloves delivered to your door as often as you'd like. Or get a box of premium Flight Path golf tees, my favorite tee of all time. So I just saw a video talking, I think it was Jim Venettos, talked about tilting the tee forward so you don't have a lot of resistance or friction when the ball comes off the tee. Well, that's how the Flight Path golf tees were designed. So there is no friction on the front end, and it does impact the ball flight. I'm telling you from my own testimonial. Anyway, so please become a Golf Smarter ambassador. Get your free gift And all you need to do is write to golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you with some simple instructions on what to do and what to say. And let me give you an update about this week's Golf Smarter Mulligans, which will be released this Friday on this very Golf Smarter feed, but we're still going back into the archives. Now that we've finished our Tony Manzoni series for 2024, we pick right back up where we left before, and this time we've got 2 episodes with Jim Waldron talking about if a swing change can really lower your score. It's really good. I'm really excited about getting back into the archives. This will be going back to 2012. So if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for upcoming episodes, or you want more information and want to discuss our September Portugal adventure, please write to golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com or click on the Hey Fred button when you visit golfsmarter.com.